many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks, and in this bulletin we're going to get you a roundup on stories developing all over the world. First up, the day's top headlines. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are all set to hold a virtual meeting on December the 15th, amid growing pressure by Western powers. The EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, says that the bloc is in discussions with the US and UK over a fresh round of economic sanctions against Russia. Britain says that the Omicron coronavirus variant is spreading at a phenomenal rate, a tidal wave accounting for about 40% of infections in London. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the first Omicron death is now confirmed in the country.
The very first thing that we have to do is grieve together, and we're going to do that before we rebuild together.
2 days after powerful tornadoes flattened hard-hit Kentucky and 5 neighboring states, dozens of people still remain unaccounted for. Rescue teams are scrambling to search through the debris.
Protests like these are now frequent here in the port city of Gwadar.
The government of Pakistan is rattled as thousands protest in the port city of Gwadar, demanding an end to illegal fishing. WION is reporting today from Ground Zero as women come to the forefront of the protests. And a Hong Kong court sentences activist and business tycoon Jimmy Lai to 13 months in jail for urging participation in last year's banned Tiananmen Vigil. So, days after his high-stakes meeting with US President Joe Biden, Russia's Vladimir Putin is all set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping virtually. The talks will be held on Wednesday. The last time the two leaders met was in June of this year. That meeting was also virtual. The Chinese president hasn't left his country since the coronavirus pandemic began. This meeting comes as Russia-Ukraine tensions remain at an all-time high. On Sunday, the US and other members of the G7 issued a statement condemning Russia's aggressive military build-up along the border with Ukraine. China, which is not part of the G7, was also in the group's focus. Currently, it's unclear what position Beijing takes on Ukraine. In July, President Xi spoke over the phone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Currently, Russia and China enjoy strong relations. The two countries forged those ties back in the 1950s. They share a long border. Most of their bilateral relationship is focused around the issue of trade. Russia is the biggest supplier of weapons to China. Moscow is also the second largest source of China's oil imports. China is Russia's top trading partner and a key source of investment in its energy projects. But the two have been strengthening ties on other fronts as well. Both Moscow and Beijing have similar foreign policy approaches. The leaders even share a strong personal rapport. Since 2013, the two men have met over 30 times, with Xi Jinping even referring to Vladimir Putin on occasion as his best friend. This new meeting now comes at a time of escalating tensions between both countries and the West. US President Joe Biden's Summit for Democracy last week saw an unusual moment of accidental anxiety for the United States. In a presentation during the summit by a Taiwanese government minister, Taiwan was shown on a map in a different colour to China. Given the sensitivity of that issue, the White House decided to cut off the video feed midway. Taiwan's digital minister, Audrey Tang, was speaking on digital democracy when the unexpected graphic showed up in the video feed for about a minute. When the moderator returned to the minister several minutes later, there was no video of her. At the behest of the White House, the video feed showing Tang was cut off during the ongoing panel discussion and was replaced with audio only. The White House offered no formal comment on its act, but the State Department said confusion over screen sharing resulted in Tang's video feed being dropped. The State Department called it an honest mistake. Beijing claims the island as part of its own territory, but Taiwan claims to be self-ruled. Sources say the White House was concerned that differentiating Taiwan and China on the map in a US-hosted conference would be seen as being at odds with Washington's One China policy, which avoids taking a position as to whether Taiwan is part of China. According to reports, the map generated an instant email flurry among US officials. The White House National Security Council angrily contacted the State Department, expressing concern over whether Taiwan was shown as a distinct country. Washington complained to Taiwan's government, which in turn was angry that Tang's video feed had been cut. Some say the US move is an overreaction, as the map was not inherently about national boundaries. But the issue comes at a highly sensitive time for US-Taiwan relations. Washington has been claiming to provide support to Taiwan against any threat. And the irony of the moment was that the incident took place during a panel on counting digital authoritarianism. Staying in the Straits of Taiwan, the future of one of the world's largest reefs of algae is hanging in the balance. On the 18th of December, the people of Taiwan will vote in a referendum that will determine what happens to this fragile ecosystem which supports so much biodiversity in the region. Here's a report.
Can development take place at the cost of environment? This is the question that people in Taiwan will have to answer on the 18th of this month. The red coral reef along Taiwan's northern shores faces an existential threat. The government wants to build a liquid natural gas terminal in the middle of this fragile ecosystem that activists insist would spell the end of red algal corals. Pan Chongcheng has spent a good part of the last decade trying to protect this biodiversity hotspot.
Even when this many people want to preserve it, it is unbelievable that they won't be able to. This country seemingly only cares about economic development and money. Their values and interests don't apply to ecosystems or nature. I think this country is very dangerous because this is truly an unsustainable direction. No matter how much money you make, in the end it will all disappear. But nature will be forever lost once you have destroyed it, because in case this reef here is destroyed, it will be impossible to restore.
Advocates of the liquid natural gas terminal have said that it could help resolve Taiwan's persistent power woes. Tsai Ing-wen's government has also pledged to decrease the development area by 90% and push the receiving station farther offshore. Government officials insist that the fears of environmental damage have been grossly exaggerated.
Our three terminals, especially the one in Datang, are key for decreasing air pollution in the central southern Taiwan. Everyone uses electricity, so we have to generate it. But we can find less polluting ways to generate power. Right now, there are many coal plants in central and southern Taiwan. If we increase power generation through natural gas in the north, our carbon emissions can be cut by half. Air pollution can be decreased to 1/3. to protect the algal reef, and decreasing air pollution in central and southern Taiwan should be of equal value.
At the moment, coal provides 45% of Taiwan's electricity, while liquid natural gas contributes just 36%. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has set an ambitious target. By 2025, she wants the share of liquid natural gas in electricity production to jump up to more than 50%. And for this to happen, the LNG terminal in northern Taiwan needs to get functional soon. So the choice for the Taiwanese people in the referendum is clear: cleaner electricity or a thriving red algal coral. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Shifting our focus to the United States now, where rescuers are racing against time to find survivors after multiple tornadoes ripped through 6 states. More than 90 people have been killed, with most deaths being reported in Kentucky. Aerial video from Kentucky reveals the scale of the devastation caused by the disaster. It's being called the worst tornado in the state's history. President Joe Biden has declared the tragedy a federal disaster.
She said she can't hear me well.
Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear said that the tornadoes destroyed everything in their path. The storms knocked off power poles, leaving nearly 50,000 people without electricity.
Here's how the people of America have responded. 18,031 donations, over $2.3 million, every single penny of which is going to come to help our families here. The first set of expenses, grants that we're going to be rolling out are for funeral assistance. The very first thing that we have to do is grieve together, and we're going to do that before we rebuild together. And we are still hoping, as we move forward, for some miracles, to find more people and to hopefully have a lower death count than what we expect. I wish I understood why we've gotten hit with the pandemic, a historic ice storm, flooding, and now the worst tornado in our history, all in a span of 19 months.
And we will continue to get you those updates coming in from the United States. Shifting focus for now, Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has arrived in the UAE. This is the highest level visit since the Abraham Accords declaration. On arrival in Abu Dhabi, Prime Minister Bennett was received by UAE's Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed and was welcomed with a guard of honor. The Israeli Prime Minister said he appreciated the warm hospitality. The two countries formalized ties last year, remember, and after establishing those diplomatic ties, this is the first official visit by a Prime Minister of the Jewish state.
It's going well. What a wonderful reception. I'm very excited to be here. I'm welcomed by people as the first official visit of Israeli leader here. We, as I said, we're looking forward to strengthening the relationship.
Prime Minister Bennett has also met the UAE's de facto ruler and Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The key focus during the visit is on discussing ways to bolster cooperation, strengthening economic and commercial ties as well. While Naftali Bennett is the first Israeli Prime Minister to visit the UAE, the country's Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid, made a landmark visit there in June and opened an embassy in Abu Dhabi and a consulate in Dubai. The UAE, meanwhile, opened an embassy in Tel Aviv in July. Since the Abraham Accords were signed, Israel and the UAE have inked a series of deals on economic and trade cooperation, but the Abraham Accords were strongly condemned by Palestinians. Decades of Arab League consensus against recognizing Israel being broken until it signs a peace deal establishing a Palestinian state with a capital in East Jerusalem. Emiratis remain largely in solidarity with the Palestinians and hostile to Israel. This may lead to the UAE's links with the Jewish state becoming more discreet domestically later. No official statement or announcement regarding No official announcement, of Bennett's visit was published across Abu Dhabi, and local media have not covered it. The visit comes amid heightened regional tensions as world powers try to revive a 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. Israel has started setting up defenses with Gulf Arab states that share concern over Iranian activities. Global powers resumed talks with Israel's arch-enemy Iran over the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. The trip can be seen as a renewed diplomatic push by Israel against the nuclear talks. Talks in Vienna aim to bring the US back into the deal and return Iran to full compliance with its commitments. Bennett has called for the Vienna talks to be halted. Meanwhile, the Israeli premier has accused Tehran of nuclear blackmail, adding that any revenue from sanctions relief will be used to bolster the military arsenal that can harm Israel. Bennett's Abu Dhabi visit follows a trip to Washington by Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz. Gantz has repeatedly stressed that military options must be ready if negotiations with Iran were to collapse. The Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid also visited London and Paris last month, where he called for tighter sanctions against Tehran.
I'm very excited to be here and welcome my people. As you said,
Dubai has become the world's first government to turn 100% paperless. The Emirates Crown Prince Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum announced that the strategy helped save over $350 million and 14 million man-hours. The Dubai paperless strategy, which was implemented in 2018 in 5 consecutive phases, has now been fully implemented across all 45 government entities in Dubai. These entities provide more than 1,800 digital services and over 10,500 key transactions. All internal, external transactions and procedures are now 100% digital and managed through comprehensive digital government services platform. The US, the UK, the European Union, Canada also expressed plans to digitalize the government operations on a larger scale. The skeptics, however, have argued it's a vulnerability to cyber attacks. Iran's hardline government plans to ban domesticated animals which are considered dangerous and harmful to the country's population. What is this all about? Our next report gets you the complete story.
No, my cat is not dangerous. That's according to Iranian pet lovers. They are outraged at their government. According to media reports, 70 members of parliament, or 1/4 of parliamentarians, recently signed a text which goes by the title "Support for the Rights of the Population in Relation to Harmful and Dangerous Animals."
It is very difficult to understand. To call the animal that is sitting next to me as wild and dangerous, these rules make it difficult for us to take these animals out of the house, and it also restricts us and our animals, which causes discomfort for both of us.
The draft condemns the practice of humans living under one roof with pets. It says domesticated animals are a destructive social problem. The proposed law prohibits import and breeding of pets. Buying and selling of animals is also outlawed.
The government has drafted a bill that gives special attention to biodiversity and wildlife. It deals with both animal rights and human rights. Basically, I would prefer to see this bill on the agenda rather than a proposal that focuses only on criminalization.
Are all animals banned? It certainly includes your most favorite ones: dogs, cats, rabbits, and even turtles. The reason is what hardline Islamists call a way of life. It aims to develop human bonds of emotional attachments towards animals.
This dog plays an important role in our family. It helped me a lot to get better when I was depressed. Although my mother is a religious woman and was very opposed to keeping dogs, now she loves the dog.
The head of Iranian Parliament's Judicial Commission is in accord with the proposal, but skeptical as to whether it would pass muster in the Islamic Consultative Assembly of Iran. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Countries around the world are getting into the holiday spirit. From a record-breaking Christmas tree to an underwater Santa Claus, there are some unusual ways when it comes to marking the festive season. Our next report tells you more.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas all around the world. In the West Bank city of Bethlehem, Jesus' birthplace, a Christmas tree was lit up in the manger square to mark the opening of the festive season. The annual event was attended by thousands. Fireworks lit up the Bethlehem sky as residents rejoiced traditional Palestinian dancing. The Vatican too unveiled its Christmas decorations in St. Peter's Square. An 8-ton, 28-meter-tall tree took center stage. Volunteers created over 600 decorations to adorn its branches, including 550 baubles that were made out of recycled plastic and around 100 of wooden spheres with silver snowflake. This year's nativity scene was donated by Peru, and all figures were dressed in traditional Peruvian costumes. In Germany's capital Berlin, 5,000 underwater creatures living at an aquarium enjoyed an early Christmas treat. After Santa Claus snorkeled in the underwater world with a sack of goodies. Stingrays, sharks and other fish certainly had a special visitor this holiday season. The festive season is also in full swing in Croatia, but with Zagreb's Christmas markets cut in size by 2/3 due to the pandemic, authorities decided to push for more open-air events. At the city's park, which traditionally hosts a Christmas ice rink, visitors were greeted by life-sized silhouettes of ice skaters and oversized Christmas-themed toys. The Italian town of Gubbio set up the world's largest Christmas tree. The record-breaking tree is 750 meters high and 450 meters wide. It took 8.5 kilometers of cables to light it up. Nearly 300 lines outline the shape on the slopes of the Ingino Hill. On the outskirts of London, Hampton Court Palace opened an illuminated after-dark trail. The light show, called the Palace of Stardust, features light installations and projections around the grounds. The palace is expected to welcome around 36,000 visitors to the show, which runs until early January. Staff at one of the largest COVID-19 vaccination centers in Bucharest built a 3-meter-tall Christmas tree out of empty vaccine containers. The tree and present boxes were illuminated by colored LEDs.
The tree we have here is made predominantly out of Pfizer containers that we have been collecting since March 1st, 2021, from the people who got a vaccine in our center. Approximately 19,000 containers were used to make it. The lower level is made with Moderna containers, and the presents are made with Johnson & Johnson vaccines.
The staff collected the containers and started building the tree early November, outside working hours, sometimes spending until 2 in the morning to complete it. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition. We are taking a very short break. Stay tuned to WION World is One. Thanks very much for watching.
There are many other... this is right, Arab.